Now I'm going to introduce Cheryl Rose. Most of y'all know her. I think you all do. She's been with us for a while now. She's been um, a great addition to the museum. She is a pollinator expert, and she says, "Barry, I'm not a pollinator expert, but yeah, she is." And before she came to the museum, she worked with me a bunch on nature programs here at the museum, and she got us started in getting us certified for different things like butterfly garden, natural wildlife habitat, and we had talked about having something here where she would give a lecture on this, and then COVID happened. So she had the lecture pretty much done, and we decided to throw it into the gardening series.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's good to see y'all all here, and I'm excited to do this presentation because I've been talking about backyard wildlife habitats for a long time now, and I have had people come to me and ask me how to do that. So I'm going to give you the information you need to get to that point and share some photos from my backyard wildlife habitat and also from the museum's backyard wildlife habitat. And just a disclaimer here, all of these photos were taken by me except one, and you'll know which one when we get to it. On this first slide, you will see these three signs, and this is on our cedar sign display board that was built by master gardener Keith Kunkel. And so he made that so that we can attach our certification signs onto it. And we actually have one more that we haven't put on there yet, and it is one for the SHARE program, which stands for Simply Having Areas Reserved for the Environment. And we will get that one on maybe by next spring. I always like to throw some quotes in. And this is one of my favorite ones. Treat the earth well. It was not given to you by your parents. It was loaned to you by your children. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. And that's an ancient Native American proverb. And the picture that I put in here is a native tree. This is the red buckeye. And this is actually the one growing in my backyard. I purchased this as a tiny little thing at the Lichterman Nature Center plant sale. Probably 15 years ago or so. But that's a tree you want in your backyard. Like I said, it's a small one. I don't think it gets over 15 feet. You see those red tubular blossoms. Well, I think y'all can probably all figure out what kind of wildlife that attracts. That is blooms early in the spring, and that is the one of the indicators that you have that the hummingbirds are on their way. When the red buckeye is blooming, start watching for hummingbirds. And sure enough, every year, about the time that my tree starts blooming, I'll start seeing a hummingbird here and there. And if anybody wants any, let me know, because every year when the seeds start falling out of the husks, I try to go out and grab a few of them and stick them in a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator. And then I have little trees to give out the next year. Why do we want or need to create a backyard wildlife habitat? From the standpoint of being a conservationist, for me, it's because I know that wildlife needs our help. With the ever-growing population and loss of habitat, especially wild areas, you know, when a bulldozer comes in and starts clearing land for a housing development, you have habitat destroyed for all types of plants and animals. So the birds, butterflies, and other wildlife are being pushed into ever shrinking wilderness areas. Well, what we can do by developing a backyard wildlife habitat is we can, no matter what the size, whether it's 100 square feet or 100 acres, we can all make little wildlife preserves. And of course, those of you who've seen my presentations before recognize this little lady right here. As master gardeners, those of us that are master gardeners, you know, we always are looking for an excuse to plant a garden or to plant more plants. Well, we can go out and find some that will be good nectar plants for our pollinators and plant them. All right. Our first certification here at the museum, and the first one that I got from my backyard, was a wildlife habitat certified through the National Wildlife Federation. And you can go to nwf.org and learn everything you need to know about their wildlife habitat program. And they also have guides with lists of plants, trees, and flowers and other things that you can plant in your yard. The other one, the second one we received, and the second one that I got in my backyard, is the Monarch Way Station. Those of you who know me know how passionate I am about saving the monarchs. And one of the first things that that I did when we renovated the pollinator gardens act is started thinking about planting milkweed in there. And of course we have milkweed there, and we have the small butterfly garden at the front entrance, and it has several milkweed plants too. In fact, this year it did very well, and I didn't collect all the seeds before the pods split open, so I don't know where we're going to have milkweeds pop up around the front of the museum, but I'm going to try to watch for them. And if they're in a place where they can't stay, I'm going to pot them up and we'll give them away. Another certification we have is we are a certified pollinator habitat. And this was through the Xerces Society and their Bring Back the Pollinators program. We are also a part of their Million Pollinator Challenge, which was last year. They wanted to get 1 million pollinator habitats registered. Well, they exceeded that. And but luckily we are on their list, and we have that beautiful demonstration garden out back for the pollinators, and we're very, very proud of that. And of course, there it is. There is our pollinator garden. This one was taken when we had Party with the Pollinators maybe last year. And for those of you who have not been to Party with the Pollinators, it is a celebration every year that we have to show off our gardens and to have people who are interested in pollinators meet each other. Unfortunately, this year we couldn't have it because of COVID, but sooner or later we'll get to have it again. And you can come and visit the gardens anytime that the sun is up, basically. We're not open all of the time now, but our grounds are open until dusk every day. And you can come look at our gardens. There's not a whole lot going on right now in there, but in the spring and summer, it is just a buzz with bees and hummingbirds and butterflies. Now, talking about backyard wildlife habitats, this is my certificate. And if you'll notice, they give you a number. You have a number, and my number was 33,523. I did this, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago. Well, I was looking at the museum's certificate. The museum's certification number was, now remember, mine was 33,523. The museum's registration number is 203,890. And this has been about 3 or 4 years ago that we certified here. So you can do the math. You can see there have been lots and lots of backyard wildlife habitats registered with the National Wildlife Federation. And in fact, I know Paula is on here. Paula's yard is registered. I'm not sure if anybody else is, but Paula's got a nice place kind of out in the country, and she got registered, and she said then critters started showing up. Build it and they will come. One of the best things you can do is set aside a portion of your property as a wild area. The back part of my property, I only live on a city lot that is less than 1/4 of an acre. It's 60 feet wide and 150 feet deep, but there's a lot of stuff crammed in there. But the back portion of my property is a little bit wild. I have bottlebrush buckeye shrub back there, and cypress trees, and beautyberry, and strawberry euonymus, and I have a little brush pile that I've created. And you want something like that, just a small one, for critters that need a place to hide. And you'd be surprised at what all you'll see in there. This is the elements you need to provide a backyard wildlife habitat: food, water, cover, places to raise young, and now they've added sustainable practices. Food. To say a little bit about the photo, this was taken in my mother's backyard. She feeds hummingbirds, hundreds of hummingbirds every year, and asked me to come out and take some photos of them. So we got this pair right here, and I thought that was a pretty cool picture to add in for the food portion. You want to set out and maintain feeders, and you want to make sure you have the right type of feeder for the birds you're trying to help. Of course, hummingbirds, you're going to want a nectar feeder. If you're feeding cardinals, chickadees, tufted titmice, you want a feeder that will hold black oil sunflower seed. Now, the feeder that we have here at the museum is a collapsible feeder that is mesh. It's called a no-no, and it is made so that the clinging birds like the chickadees and the cardinals can come and pull a seed out, and it also has a small perch around the back. There's also tube feeders. There are all types of feeders, and some are geared to certain types of birds, like goldfinches. You want to feed them Niger seed, and their feeders have a tiny little rectangular slit in them, or you can get the sock feeders. So, decide what you want to feed, if there's something specific you want to feed, or if you just want to attract all types of birds. I highly recommend a tube feeder or one of those mesh feeders. The good thing about the mesh feeders, and also if you get a tube feeder, you want to make sure it has metal ports, feeding ports, because if you don't, your neighborhood squirrels are going to find out that you've got some yummy seeds in there, and they will chew a plastic feeder to pieces to get to it. You want to have not only feeders, but you want to have the plants to attract your animals, especially I have an affinity for pollinators, so I try to plant things that I know will benefit the pollinators. This is actually a little mini zinnia that I planted. I believe it's the Sahara series. And this fritillary really, really, really enjoyed it. And it stayed there long enough that I took a lot of photos of it. All right, this tiger swallowtail is nectaring on some garden phlox. This phlox, I have had so long, I can't remember who I got it from. I think it was one of my grandmothers. But every time I have moved, I have taken it with me. And when it blooms in the summertime, it is covered up with butterflies, and with the hummingbird moths, and with hummingbirds, bees. It's a really good nectar plant. Now, you also want to provide water. Water can be in the form of a bird bath, just a simple bird bath, or just a terracotta saucer with water in it. Sprinkler. Hummingbirds like to play in sprinklers. A drip bucket. For a drip bucket, all you have to do is get a plastic bucket and you put a little hole in it and you hang it from like a shepherd's hook or tree limb or whatever, and have a dish underneath it. And as it drips, the sound of that water will help attract birds to it. And of course, as I said, sometimes Mother Nature provides water. This is a photo taken in my backyard 7 years ago. Little hummingbird was sitting there on a trumpet creeper vine and in the rain, taking a bath. You can see the raindrops falling. And so I was standing out on my back porch taking photos of that. You want to provide water for bugs too, especially bees. And you can take just a shallow bird bath. This one is pretty shallow. And I bought some of those glass pebbles and stones and put in it. And then you top it off with water. What happens is the insects can land on that and get a drink without drowning. So it takes you all of about 5 minutes to build one of these. There's actually, I think I did a video on our Facebook page on how to make a bee water out of terracotta pots. So anybody interested can check that out. Cover. Wildlife needs places to shelter from the extremes in the weather, and a lot of species need shelter to hide from predators. As you can see in this photo, you pretty much can't see anything but this big eye. And that was actually, I believe that was a robin that had built a nest in one of my trees, and I managed to get up close and personal with her with my zoom lens. Cover can also be, besides evergreen trees. Evergreen trees are really good cover, especially in the wintertime, because they don't lose their leaves, and they're dense, and they can help shelter the birds from the cold wind or snow or rain. You also have to provide places to raise young. Wildlife needs shelter and places to raise their offspring, and many places can double as places to have cover and to raise young. Examples are nesting boxes, dead trees, snags, mature trees, host plants for caterpillars. As you can see in this photo, this is a bluebird box, and I actually had a snag that had broken off, and I put the post near that, and I had a pair of bluebirds that decided that they liked that, and they nested there one spring. And I managed to get this photo of both of them. The parent at the top, you can't see it because it's so small, but had a caterpillar, a bright green caterpillar in its beak that it was bringing to feed the babies with. That's another thing that people need to think about when they're using pesticides and insecticides to get rid of, say, caterpillars or whatever. Most birds have to have soft-bodied insects, caterpillars, whatever, to feed their young. Even if they're a seed eater, those caterpillars provide a good amount of protein for their babies. So you want to be careful with your pesticide use. Now, you have to have, last but not least, sustainable practices. You want to maintain your habitat sustainably. You want to be environmentally friendly. You want to make sure your soil, air, water is safe, because wildlife rely on clean, healthy environment. You can use mulch or a drip or irrigation hose for your irrigation. You can build a rain garden, and you want to control exotic species, and you want to eliminate pesticides and chemical fertilizers. You also can compost. Now, getting back to pesticides and chemical fertilizers, there are a lot of natural fertilizers out there that you can use. Chicken manure that's been composted, horse manure, And you can even buy these environmentally friendly fertilizers at even big box stores. There are several brands, and if anybody's interested, they can contact me here. Pesticides, there are some natural pesticides that you can use, especially for caterpillars. But like I said, you want to be careful in what you use, because pesticides, especially the heavy duty ones, if you read the label, and you're supposed to read the label, as Booker and Chris Cooper and any master gardener will tell you, the label is the law. Those companies have spent millions of dollars to research and find out what the correct mixing ratio is, and the correct time of the day to spray. I hardly ever use a pesticide. When I do, I use an organic one, but I don't have any trouble with my landscape plants getting eaten up. For one thing, if you've got a healthy yard, you're going to have birds in there. Well, as we just saw a few slides back, the bluebirds were catching caterpillars to feed to their young. You'll also have hummingbirds will catch and eat small insects. So you don't want to poison the insects. Just let your birds, let nature take over. The garden spiders will take care of a lot of the things, and various other critters. And in the meantime, you also want to research your plants that you're going to put in your yard, and you want to see, okay, what can this provide to the wildlife? Will this provide cover? Will this provide nectar? Will this be a host plant for a caterpillar larvae? So you have to do your homework, but there's a lot of information out there that you can get. And in fact, probably more than you could even digest. I have folders upon folders of it, but you definitely want to make sure that you do use sustainable practices. Also, know your bugs. That's something that I preach to a lot of people about. Know your bugs, know your insects. I like to use these photos because so many people do not know what a ladybug larvae looks like. Well, that little black and orange alligator looking critter is a ladybug larvae. Ladybugs eat lots and lots and lots of aphids. So there's your natural aphid control right there. Now, an adult ladybug will eat lots of aphids, but the larvae, that little black and orange alligator, eats a lot more than the adults do. So I like to encourage people to learn your bugs. They're bad bugs, they're good bugs. Lots and lots of good bugs. So you need to learn to recognize them, and you want to encourage them, because that ladybug and ladybug larvae are eating a lot of aphids. Well, a lot of people have trouble with aphids, especially on tender new growth. Well, if you got ladybugs there, they'll take care of the aphids. And also you can use insects as indicators of bug problems. If you see a lot of ladybugs around on a plant, start looking, and especially look on the underside. In that slide with the adult ladybug, you can see some little dots there. Well, that was aphids, and she was there on that leaf eating aphids. Lots and lots of beneficial insects. So I encourage y'all to learn, and putting a plug in here for UT Extension. There's all types of free information out there. If you will go to UT Extension's website, you can download and print out all types of publications, and they even have one on butterflies that actually have a copy of. So plug out there for UT Extension. I love UT Extension. I've been a master gardener for 13 years, and there are a lot of master gardeners on here. We know how important it is. And shout out to Booker T. Lee. He was the Tipton County coordinator when I became a master gardener, and I've learned a lot from him, continue to learn a lot from him. And all of us in Tipton County love you, Booker.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love y'all too, and I love y'all too.
As I said, use native plants. The slide with the pink flower, that is Joe Pye weed. And the one on the other side, the yellow, is goldenrod. Now, whoever named plants, some plants kind of didn't think about what people think about weeds. Joe Pye weed, even though it's a weed, and I don't consider it a weed, I have it growing in my yard, and it's beautiful. And as you can see, the bumblebees love it. They have now developed different cultivars of Joe Pye weed. You can get one that's called Little Joe, that's a small one, all the way up to the regular size Joe Pye weed. They smell nice. They attract wildlife. I think they're a beautiful landscape plant myself. Goldenrod, goldenrod gets such a bad rap, especially the time of year. This time of year, it's still blooming, and people will say they're allergic to goldenrod. That's what's aggravating their allergies. It's not. And this is something I actually learned from, I think it was Cheryl Rose at a presentation. Ragweed blooms at the same time that goldenrod does. Ragweed is the culprit. Ragweed is what's causing your allergies to be aggravated, not goldenrod. Goldenrod's pollen is very heavy, so it won't travel very far. So if you happen to have, if Mother Nature plants some goldenrod in your yard like she has mine, if you have a place where you can, let it grow. I have a patch right out near my back door, and I have gone out there late in the afternoon. It would be covered with bumblebees. I'd go out the next morning, the bumblebees would still be there on the goldenrod, and they'd be covered with dew. They love it so much they'd spent the night on it. Now, you can also get different cultivars of goldenrod now, and they have everything from a dwarf all the way up to full-size ones. And just go to your local nurseries, and if they don't carry it, ask for it. Another place you can see a lot of cool plants like this is the West Tennessee Research and Education Center in Jackson. A lot of us still call it the experiment station. They trial all types of plants there, and you can see a lot of really, really interesting and cool pollinator plants. Jason and Carol really are good to our pollinators and plant a lot of plants there. And when they have their plant sales, in fact, they just had one, they had a lot of cool stuff there. And I've gotten a lot of interesting native plants and plant cultivars from over there. And I believe their grounds are open all of the time, and you can just go and park and walk around. Okay, besides native plants to attract wildlife, you need a good balance with your bugs and with your other critters. And something that I'm real fond of is frogs and toads. As a child, I played with them all the time and would catch tadpoles and raise them into frogs. So I got a soft spot for frogs and toads, especially toads, because everybody thinks toads are warty and ugly and slimy, and they're not. We have, especially in the springtime here on the grounds of the museum, frogs and toads literally everywhere. Sometimes you'll see a tiny little one about the size of your thumbnail hopping across the front of the building. And of course, around our pond, there will be thousands of little toads, especially the little red ones. There will be tadpoles in our wetlands area and in our pond. The frog that you see there sitting in the pot nearly made me hurt myself when I discovered it. I was planting some things that I'd had in pots, and I started to grab that pot, and the soil started moving, and next thing I knew, a frog popped up. Had the same thing happen with toads. I gently removed the frog and the toad and gave them another place to hide. Also, frogs are good indicators of the health of your property. So if you have lots of frogs and toads, your property is probably pretty healthy. So I know the museum property is really healthy because we have them everywhere. Also, something to think about with frogs and toads is they're good insect control. I know toads love slugs, and if you have a lot of hosta or anything like that that slugs really like, you want to encourage your toads. You want to have them in your garden because they'll help you control your slug population. Now, I didn't bring my soapbox, y'all, but I'm going to get on it for a few minutes anyway. But I want to give you this information and why everyone should try to have a backyard wildlife habitat to help our birds, bees, butterflies, and bugs and bats and everything else. This information really startled me and upset me and worries me. Butterflies have declined by half since the 1980s across the board. When I was a child, there was nothing to go out and see butterflies everywhere. Especially after rain, you would see the little sulfurs and other butterflies around the mud puddles. You don't see them so much now. And also, those of us who grew up in the country or who visit the country used to at night, you couldn't drive down a road or a highway without getting bugs splattered all over your windshield. Pay attention the next time you do that. Notice not so much. We're losing insects at an alarming rate because of certain factors, and that's not good. As I said earlier, caterpillars, birds rely on them to feed their young because they're a great source of protein. And without host plants for those caterpillars, or because of the use of pesticides, they won't be there, and it's a chain reaction. You do that, the birds don't have anything to feed their young, so you've got no birds. It's just it's a vicious circle. We really, 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 really want to provide a safe habitat for our wildlife, which means that you got to do your homework. You want to use, instead of harsh chemicals, you want to use integrated pest management. Try to use organic solutions. And sometimes you just got to tolerate a little bit of bug damage, because I'd rather see a few holes in the leaves of my plants and still see those butterflies and hummingbirds and hummingbird moths flying around. I can tolerate a few holes. And of course, I couldn't do a presentation without talking about my beloved monarchs. Years ago, when I discovered that monarchs were declining, I kind of took it up as one of my causes. The last 20 years, the monarch population has decreased by 90%. I follow every year through Monarch Watch and through a website called Journey North, the population of the monarchs. A few years ago, we had a really good year. This year wasn't such a good year. And I'm sure y'all all know that the monarchs are one of the great migratory stories in the world, and they will migrate all the way up from Canada to their wintering grounds in Mexico in the fir forests down there. And along the way, there are people that are watching, because monarchs, some people will tag monarchs. In fact, I believe Paula told me just last week that there was a monarch in her back garden that had a tag on it. I've never seen one with a tag on it, but we want to take really good care of our monarchs. I've read it described as if America had a national butterfly, it would be the monarch. We want to take care of them. Plant milkweed. Keep planting milkweed. It's not hard to grow. In fact, if you take too good care of it, you'll probably kill it. Get your regular old orange butterfly weed, and there's also all different types of milkweed. You can get, there's actually even a Mexican milkweed or black bloodflower that I have had success with. It's just an annual, but you get your other native milkweeds, and they're perennials. So all you got to do is plant it once. And you want that milkweed because that is the only plant that monarch caterpillars will eat. So the female monarchs will lay their eggs on the milkweed, and when they hatch out, the caterpillars will eat that milkweed. So no caterpillars, no milkweed, no caterpillars. So plant milkweed, lots and lots of milkweed. You want plant diversity. You don't want a monoculture. Lots and lots of different kinds of plants. Here and at my gardens at home, lots of coneflowers, the firecracker plant or vermillionaire is a really good one for especially the hummingbirds. The Joe Pye weed, ironweed, butterfly weed, it goes on and on and on. But you can visit a local nursery and find a very good selection. There's one here in Tipton County that I frequent a lot. Nothing against the big box stores, but I prefer to support our small family-owned nurseries. It doesn't take a whole lot of research to figure out where they are. All you got to do is talk to some other gardener, and they'll tell you that they've just discovered some cool nursery. Paula and I know about a cool one that's not that far from here. Just a few more photos. That lily I originally got from my maternal grandmother, and it just keeps on every year, on and on and on. Coneflowers, I love coneflowers. I believe this one is powwow wild berry. That's one of my favorites. And this is some research that I dug up just this week, and it excited me because it gave me a good reason to tell everybody to get outside. And this is research. Spending at least 120 minutes, 2 hours a week in nature is associated with good health and well-being. And heaven knows we need that, especially in this time of COVID. So create a habitat that you can spend time in, or go spend time in a neighbor's habitat. One of the things I do in the late spring and early summer when I get home from work, some days at my other job can be kind of stressful. So I'll grab a glass of tea and a chair and put it out in the middle of the backyard and sit there and drink my tea and unwind. And I can feel the stress just melting away by watching the birds, the bees, the butterflies, the dragonflies, whatever critter happens to be in front of me. You also learn a lot when you create a habitat. Being an avid bird watcher for a number of years, I already knew that the male cardinal takes care of the babies once they fledge, but I had never actually seen that. Well, I was out in the backyard one day, and there was Papa Cardinal feeding the youngster who was sitting there hungry. So, and you know, this is a good thing if you have children or grandchildren, especially grandchildren. I love to teach my grandchildren about wildlife. You don't have to go to a park or anything. All you got to do is walk out in your yard. And you can show them all these wonderful things in nature. You never know when it might stick with them. I know a lot of the things my parents and grandparents taught me about nature when I was a child, all of these years later, I still remember. And where else but in your own nature preserve can you take photos like this? A couple of years ago, the rabbits decided that they liked my backyard. They didn't eat too much. And I never knew when I walked out where I was going to see a bunny. And there were several little bunnies, and they let me photograph them. So I got to watch them grow up in the backyard. Sunflowers. I did not have a good photo of sunflowers, but bees love sunflowers. We had a chipmunk or squirrel planted some sunflowers here at the museum this year. We noticed it coming up, and I think it may have been Barry said, "Is that a sunflower?" And I looked at it and I said, "It may be." Well, we left it alone and let it go, and we had 3 huge sunflowers pop up, and this is one of them, and that was where a squirrel or a chipmunk had buried some black oil sunflower seeds. And you can't look at a sunflower and not smile. I don't care who you are and what kind of mood you're in. If you look at a sunflower, you're going to smile. It's just going to make you smile. And winding up, I'm going to throw a few more of my favorite quotes at you. I love this one because to me, it really, really means something. I go to nature to be soothed and healed and to have my senses put in order. This year's been a really rough year. People have had to quarantine. We've had to stay in, haven't been able to go anywhere, be with our families. But you can go out in nature and you can smell the smells and hear the birds and see the bees and the butterflies going about their business. And you know that It's going to be all right. Sooner or later, it's going to be all right. And also, humans need to be in nature for their mental well-being. I know that for a fact. Like I said a couple minutes ago, I can have a stressful day at my other job, and I go home and I sit down and I can just feel the stress just melting away. John Muir, a hero of mine, said, "And into the forest I go to lose my mind and find my soul." Nature's good for your soul. I know it's good for mine. And of course, those of y'all who know me know who this man is. Personal hero of mine, and someone who I credit with my interest in the environment and conservation. And I love John Denver. I still love John Denver and his music. And I found this quote from him, and that really touched me. "The future of life on earth depends on our ability to see the sacred while others see only the common." And I see that. I can see a bee working on a flower, and a lot of people would just walk past that and not think anything about it. I'm fascinated, and I'll stand there for a long amount of time, just standing there watching it and thinking about the whole cycle of life there. So this is my shout out to John and my tribute to John, because I am who I am today because of his influence. And in closing, this quote I absolutely love. It's actually, I found it in a book that Barry gifted me a couple of years ago. This one right here, "The Gardener Says." And I saw that, I read it, and I thought, I have to use this in my presentations, because this is my benediction to y'all, to this presentation. "In the name of the bee and the butterfly and of the breeze, amen." And that's from Emily Dickinson. Thank y'all for coming today. I hope you learned something. Starting 1st of November, I will be here at the museum every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. If you have any questions about this presentation, you have any questions about critters or plants or whatever, give us a call here. I will do my very best to help you out. Come see us. Come see the gardens. We now on the trail have 4 benches, so that if you want to walk the trail, it's a half mile. But if you're just starting out and you can't make it the whole way without a break, there are 4 benches strategically located so that you can walk a few minutes and sit down. And you can sit there and you can observe the nature, watch the trees. The leaves are changing here. The sassafras trees are absolutely beautiful this time of year. So come see us, check out the National Wildlife Federation and Monarch Watch and the Xerces Society. And there are lots more out there, but that's just a good way to get started. So thank you all. And any questions? I appreciate the chance to do this. The museum has given me a place to be seen and be heard and spread my gospel of taking care of the pollinators. And I appreciate it. And I love working here, y'all.